The moon looks delicious from here. It's a powerful theatrical tour de force that captivates audiences with its rich mix of heart-stopping drama, but also profound pathos, created by award-winning playwright Aldo Brincat. The production is a 70-minute, largely autobiographical solo piece that offers a deeply personal exploration of family and self-discovery. And the play that receives a standing ovation award at the Standard Bank National Arts Festival back in 2024. Now, it opened at the Market Theatre this past Friday. And so perhaps to tell us a little bit more, Aldo Brincat now joins us for that chat. Aldo, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here.
I just sort of look at the play on words because
Yes.
the moon looks delicious from
Yes.
here. I mean, it's elusive, right?
Yes,
but it
yeah.
also has, it's multi-sensory, looks at
course.
something that's attainable, but also distant, close enough, but not close enough.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and how it encapsulates your journey.
Okay, well, the title comes from the idea of maybe standing in different parts of the world, especially along the longitude of the planet. And you can both maybe look out at the moon at the same time, whether you're in South Africa or Europe or Sweden. So that was the idea of sharing that kind of experience. And the moon looks delicious. My father was an immigrant. He moved to South Africa after the Second World War. And his grasp, while he could speak 7 different languages, his grasp on English was a little bit comical at times.
Okay.
So he would say things were delicious when, in fact, he didn't quite know the right word for that. So, so that's kind of how the title came about.
Well, let's talk about your relationship with your father, your relationship with your mother as well. I mean, as you mentioned, a son of immigrants, right?
Yes.
So Maltese, Egyptian, Mauritian.
Yes, so that's
what did that
basically
mean in a racially constructed society like South Africa during apartheid?
And that's the heart of the play.
Yeah.
So my father fled the Second World War. He was born and raised in Egypt, of Maltese extraction. Okay. My mother was from Mauritius. Her family moved from Mauritius after independence and the revolution for independence in Mauritius. So there was a huge community of Mauritians, white Mauritians outside of Mauritius in the 70s. And they met in Durban, and that's where we were born. So the idea of fleeing your country or looking for better opportunities in another country, and then only to find that that country now is in the grips of apartheid or fascism. Yes. And we as my brother and I were born in Durban and growing up against this backdrop of tightening apartheid in South Africa. So those are the kind of things that we are exploring in my production. The moon looks delicious.
It's about memory, right?
Yes.
And that's what we choose to remember and what we choose to forget. And the rings, because there's minimal props.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So
but tell us about that link.
So my father's father and my father both were aspiring sort of magicians, stage magicians with doves and birds and rabbits and stuff like that. And so the rings are, in fact, like a family heirloom. And when I was a young boy, my father taught me how to do the Chinese linking rings. So I would enter competitions. I was part of the South African Junior Magicians Guild and so on. But I had great anxiety over that because a magician has to be perfect. He has to maintain that allure of mystery and magic. And if you failed and the audience caught a glimpse of how the trick was done, that was the ultimate sin or the ultimate failure, right? So I grew up with all of these kind of anxieties. My hands were too small. And underlying all of this, I was grappling with my own sexuality as a small boy, growing up in a world of Catholicism. So there were, for me, a lot of pressures, presentation, performativity that I had to perform. No models, no role models that I could easily identify with. So all of that's happening, and while that's all happening, you're negotiating your sexuality, you're on stage performing in a very public arena, and then you're watching television and you're watching the horrors of apartheid playing out in other communities. Obviously, I'm a white boy, so I was kind of safe, but watching it on television as a kid, and that's, I don't think, a story we often talk about, is the impact of apartheid and the atrocities of apartheid through the eyes of children. I'm not sure that we talk about that much, but I remember watching forced removals through television, and again, spoiler alert, the play does look at a very close relationship that was torn apart by forced removals. So all of that kind of features in the production, and 70 minutes of quite intense, and I say heart-stopping roller coaster drama, and that's why I think it's won all these awards. I think it really does take the audience on a really huge kind of roller coaster of experiences.
Yeah, and it's so vivid. You know, the past is not too distant.
Not
so
at all.
It takes us back there. But even if we're looking at your own relationship to the production, it does change over time when you get to perform. And I know some musicians who, you know, they have songs. At some point, they stop performing it because the healing has happened. Has that happened for you?
Oh, very nice point. Very nice point. So, so I'm into my like 50th, 60th performance of this production, having performed across the world and sort of in Southern Africa. But now what happens now is that I bring my new life into the production. So, for example, my husband introduced me to the music of Bongeziwe Mabandla, and we've been chatting about using some of his work in and before in my to top and tail my production. So that's new, you know, so it pulls my production from its history and my sort of real immediate ancestry, and it puts it in a very contemporary context, you know. So we talk about narratives. Which narratives are we talking about when we talk about the trauma and inherited trauma of apartheid? Who has permission to say what and how to say those kind of things? So the production, I think, brings, well, according to the audience, it brings a very interesting sort of aspect to our history of our relationship with, and our ongoing relationship with apartheid, because it's not done. Yeah, the remnants are still there. Absolutely. I mean, these social constructs, we still see it playing out. But I wonder also if your parents had to see this, what would they say looking at how it's evolved? It's hard. My father was what we would have considered a liberal. My mother was what we would have considered a conservative. And it's interesting how people can still love each other. Yeah. And that's what we're also exploring today. Like, just because I don't agree with your politics, can I still love you as a human being? And because maybe, obviously, you think my politics is wrong too. So where do we meet? How do we still maintain community and build our nation? And that's what I think the world is facing: fascism, the rise of fascism, and so on. Can I also even add to the point about how you, being a third culture kid, would have impacted, because you're in a different society, your parents have different origins as well, and you're all interrelating. Yeah, what was that socialization? So that's crazy. I mean, somebody said the world is made by migration. You know, of course, we know that's true, you know. But for me, that's the thing. I mean, I use, for example, in my play, I remember talking to my dad saying, "But Dad, I'm not going to be doing the rings at school, exe." And just that word exe already shows that transition from sort of speaking French at home to now embracing my South African identity, you know. So, yeah, and I wonder then, if we look at the next chapter, I know that I missed the performance on Friday, but I wanted to know when is it running until, and for how long? How do we also keep in contact with you with the conversations? Thank you. Well, you can contact us, of course, through the Market Theatre, which is also a huge honor and has its own history of struggle and resistance in itself. But the play is on until the 27th of July, and you can get tickets at Web Tickets. All right. Well, the conversation continues. Thank you so much, Aldo, for joining us at this hour. Aldo Brincat, just chatting to us about his offering, The Moon Looks Delicious. From here, of course, it's currently running at the Market Theatre. Thank you to him for joining us at this hour.